you all the latest in Browns news. Tune in now. Good evening, everybody. It is a Thursday night. That means it's another Fanatical Elfz show. I'm John. There is Ethan down below. We got Sam. We got Steve. And we got Jarrell all in-house. Several of our colleagues here on the Fanatical Elfz network. Oh, we're getting all sorts of error messages. Oh, I love that. Right? Don't we love that? Great start. Facebook. We just love Facebook. It's Thursday night. Lots of things to talk about. It's been a busy week. I know right now, and some of you who are watching us live on the Fanatical Elfz network. I know Rod Bloom and his colleague, the Browns Blitz, was on earlier as well. Jarrell just did a show live, the Dog Food Radio. So all of you who are diehard Browns fans who are dedicated to our network, we love you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Got a great group here. So, Ethan, how are you doing on this evening?
I'm doing all right. I am glad it's Thursday night. Tomorrow's Friday. Thank goodness. It has been a long week of recovery from the road trip up to Ohio last weekend.
You've had a lot of travels, and you've done lots of podcasts with Heather and your colleague Mike on the Going Nuclear and the Best Doggone Podcast in the Land. Did I say it right this time?
Okay. You got it. You nailed it. Yeah, we are keeping busy. There is certainly plenty to talk about as everybody else is also doing their stuff, Jarrell and Steve and Sam and yourself. So, hey, it's good times. Good times.
Sam, how are you doing there in Dallas?
Pretty good. We had a bit of a storm yesterday. It's Thursday, right? Yes. Okay. We had a storm yesterday.
I love that Sam gives us the weather report. I love it because we're all weather guys too. So.
It was just rain. They said there might have been some tornado threats like early Tuesday, but it was just all rain. Rain for like 8 hours and was gloomy the rest of the day. But it's cleared out now, just wet. But yeah, it's been nice. Draft I thought was good. I think it was a good draft. I wish the first round wasn't as commercialized as it is, but unfortunately, the NFL is an entertainment business, not a sports business. So it is what it is. But yeah, I'm excited to be back on the show.
Sam, I want to thank you for keeping it down here. A week ago, you were broadcasting from the studio that you're at there, while many of us, like Ethan and I, were at the stadium in Cleveland, and I know we were intermittent with that, but appreciate your time to do that. That was great. I know Steve tried to pop on there. I don't know how much audio we got of all of us, but thank you for being there.
Not much, probably.
Right. Steve, how are you tonight?
Oh, doing great. It's Thursday. Draft's finally over. Thank God.
Yes.
So yeah, now all we got to do is listen to the garbage and clean it up till the rookies report May 9th.
May 9th. Okay, so that's a little bit over next weekend then, right? Is that?
Yeah, May 9th. And then on May 14th, we get the schedule release show.
Ooh, yes. That's something that we're going to be talking about. I know, Jarrell, you kind of hit a little bit on that. How are you doing this evening?
Oh, I'm doing well. Just finished the show, so I'm ready to get in the ring and, talk some game with y'all. So yeah,
we had a good time. Was it Saturday, Steve? You and I talked about this on my show last night on the Johnny Cleveland podcast. It could not have been better timing. We started a little bit after 2, and around 2:15, 2:20,
we started with a 5th round started.
Yes, and Steve's. It was great because the way that you said, "Oh, John, you're gonna like this," and so I immediately was like, "Shador, really?" So it was a fun moment. He is a big part of what happened this week. We can get into that in a little bit. Let's start at the top of the draft. I know, Ethan, I was there with you in-house at the stadium. Lou Marconi was there. Sherry was there. Sherry's husband, or not husband, but long time. Anyway, boyfriend or I don't want to.
I would say
Sorry, I don't want to screw that up if you're watching.
no, I think it's I don't know.
He's a great guy, but
Matt is great. I struggle
Matt,
with
okay.
myself. I say, is it partner? Is it a significant other? They're together.
Yes.
It's Matt and Sherry. They're together. So
right. I love them. They're great. And so we're there. They had a wonderful start. The journey was there, and that was just totally awesome. Especially those of us who are in our 40s, 50s, and whatnot. My son was with me, Alec, and he was not like enamored by the journey. He didn't quite understand why everybody was standing and singing and partying like it's 1999 or whatever. But he had a lot of fun. So we're there. Ethan, that was great. Ethan and Sherry found me in the stands. We came down. We all sat together, and then we started the draft started on the big board. And there were rumors that the Browns were going to trade, and they did, just like out of a movie, draft day or whatever. And they traded with this young pup from Jacksonville. They switched spots with two. They ended up taking Travis Hunter. I know, Ethan, that really bothered you quite a bit at the moment. You want to talk a little bit about that, and we can talk a little bit about that 2-5 trade and what you guys all think about it.
Yeah, definitely. At the moment, I was extremely frustrated because I kind of admit maybe it was because I'd gotten sold on the idea.
Yeah.
And I had bought into it. And the offense has sucked so bad. But now that I can look back at it on a whole, and stepping back for a moment, I'm like, all right, Mason Graham was seen as a very, very high prospect on their board. We've got an extra number 1 next year, and we turned the number 36 pick into Quinshon Judkins. So I guess I'll take it. We still don't have another wide receiver to complement Jerry Jeudy, but okay, one step at a time here. So yeah, I was it felt like a kick in the package. Another classic. Let's trade down. Hey, let's pass on Julio Jones and get Phil Taylor. Hey, that's what it felt like. But I think there's hope there that Jacksonville will stink up the joint. And we're rooting against them every single week so that the Browns have a good draft pick in 2026. And ideally, hopefully one of these rookie quarterbacks can step up, and we aren't searching for a quarterback in the first round next season.
Sam, what were your thoughts? I know you talked a little bit while we were on air, your thoughts about the number 2 and the 5 and the trade and Mason Graham, because you were talking on air. I did go back and listen. You were hoping for, Steve, your favorite Carter, right?
Bill Carter. Yeah, that was
Bill Carter.
That was what I would, if he wouldn't have fallen to 5. I'm not surprised he didn't. That would have been kind of crazy, but I think Mason Graham is a really, really good pick. He just has a lot of talent. I think he's a great spot for the Browns as well. Defensive tackle has been a problem for 3 years now. It feels like forever. It hasn't been, but it feels like a while we've had to deal with problems with defensive tackle. So I'm happy we got a Phil, but again, you never really know how good a player is going to transfer over to college until the season actually starts. So I have high hopes, but I'm not like I can't think of the word, over my head and hope, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Steve, what about you?
I like the pick. I first liked him after he demolished Ohio State. I turned to my wife after watching that game and said, man, that guy would look good in brown and orange. I tell you.
Was that this past year's game?
Yeah. Whew. My goodness. I like what Jim Schwartz said about it, and I'll take Jim Schwartz's word anytime, any day.
What did he say?
Said somebody asked him about his lack of sack numbers, and he basically said, we're going to put him in position to change that. So I'll trust Mr. Schwartz. Guy's fast. I know a lot of people complained about his short arms and some other stuff like that, but no,
I think about when people are saying that with the short arms, I have this image of like Barney,
I have a T-Rex. You know,
T-Rex,
that's what
right?
I go, yeah, I don't have short arms. What are you talking about? No, I mean,
Well, and Heather's
he's a run
description.
stopper, and they need to stop the run. And you know, so I'm happy with it, especially after I saw what they got. I mean, when I looked on my phone and saw they got next year's first. I went, okay, I understand it now.
They did get some people were saying that they didn't get enough, but I don't know. Jarrell, where are you at with all that, with the 2 and 5? Were you surprised?
I had a league game that night. It was a championship game, and one of the guys on the team.
Did you win the game?
Yeah, we won. Yeah.
Good job.
There you go.
And he's a Browns fan. He tells me, like, right before the game, he's like, they traded back. And I can't say what I said, but I wasn't happy because, you know, when you think about the AFC North, you got Jamar Chase, thermonuclear option.
I know
he can light you up for 250 receiving yards. He has that type of ability.
But he had a quarterback though, in Joe
Well,
Burrow.
but that's what I'm getting at. They say you have a quarterback. Everybody thought Sam Darnold was washed up garbage. You put him with Justin Jefferson, and again, I know we turned into a pumpkin in the playoffs, but when you got a receiver that nobody can cover, you saw it with Josh Gordon. Josh Gordon's I just saw it today, he's on the receiver with back-to-back 200-yard passing games. At some point, Randy Moss was making Gus Farrat look good. Sometimes you just need a guy that can get open and catch the ball. So I don't really buy the Travis Hunter wouldn't have worked because you don't have a quarterback. I think at some point
was brought up by your colleague Ethan Heather in your show the other night. You guys talked about this same point because you guys were saying, you know, wouldn't have mattered if he was a Brown, like you're saying, Jarrell, or like, you know, he's in with Jacksonville. Would that be much different? Is it going to be much different? And then that gets to your question, Jarrell, about. Or Steve, we were talking about how much of a high draft pick are we going to get next year from Jacksonville with this trade?
Has anybody seen Jacksonville's schedule? It looks very light.
I don't know about that. I looked at it. I don't know about that, Joe. I looked at it the other night. I mean, they got the Chiefs on there. I think they got the Bills. I think they've got.
No, they've got
Tampa.
They host the Chiefs, the Chargers, the Rams, the Seahawks. The Jets,
those
the
are
Panthers,
tough teams, Jarrell.
And they go on the road to Phoenix, Cincinnati, San Francisco, Las Vegas, and Denver.
Yeah, I didn't look at it as a cupcake.
So they've got basically to counteract the terrible AFC South.
Mm-hmm.
They've got what do you say? It sounds like they've got the NFC West.
They have the AFC West, the NFC West.
Yeah.
And the Jets. And
wait,
Bengals.
if they're playing the Jets and the Bills, how are they? If they're playing,
no, they're not playing the Bills.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought someone said they played the Bills. I apologize. Okay, so
that was John.
Okay, so
don't listen to me. I'm never right,
except when you are right.
Well, you were right then.
Yeah.
What a paradox.
I've been getting in trouble with my colleagues at work. I'm sorry for diving in here before I go back to you, Ethan, but I said a few, you know how I ramble on there, guys, right? Steve, especially, you know, my babbling that I go on so I said something about my colleagues not knowing football. And of course, my colleagues are like head football coaches and different things at the high school. So I had to apologize, a public apology the other day on my show. It was quite fun as a joke. Okay, Ethan, back to you.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, certainly Jacksonville is going to be an interesting one to watch under a new coach and then a GM that they brought in 2 weeks before the draft or something.
That looks like no older than your sons, right? Your son,
right?
Yeah. Or Sam. Sam, you look about the same age as the Jacksonville.
Sam looks older than the Jacksonville.
I take Sam's.
A little bit.
Sorry.
Are we sure it isn't Sam? That is actually the Jacksonville GM.
And you're boy genius. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they had a good I thought they had a really good draft, and now I'm looking at it and I'm like, did they have a really good draft? I don't know that they had a really good draft.
Eh,
Meh.
eh.
Yeah,
I mean,
they're in the. Go ahead.
yeah, no,
in
no.
the AFC, in the AFC South, they've got to play Houston and Indy. I think Indy's going to be better.
Yeah.
Titans, not so much. By the way, did they draft a quarterback? I'm not sure.
You're not?
I don't think ESPN has said if they drafted a quarterback.
Yeah, isn't that crazy, guys? That essentially there's probably been more coverage of Shedeur Sanders getting drafted in the 5th round than Ford going number 1.
I've been talking about this kid for months, though. This is where we can talk about it in a little bit, but I'm just okay. So back to your points there.
Back
Ethan.
to Jacksonville.
Yeah, Jacksonville.
Yeah, no. I don't really have much else to say. I mean, certainly we'll see. And Trevor Lawrence has to stay healthy too. That is going to be very important for him to stay healthy.
Yeah.
They could have a surprise with the new head coach, and certainly Travis Hunter makes things a little bit easier because he does bring the potential for lots of explosive plays on offense. They've already got some really talented players there too. I don't know what to think. I am hoping that they stink, but I'm thinking more middle of the pack.
Okay. So top 15, 20 pick rather than like a top 5 or 10 pick. I think, Jarrell, you had posed that question to some of us.
Yeah, I mean, they're in the AFC South. They have a better chance of winning their division than the Browns do. There's no doubt about that. They only have to worry about Houston. If Houston stumbles out the gates or has an injury, that division's up for grabs.
Okay.
So Vegas has the over under on them at 7 games the last I checked, and I think the Browns went down a game. It was 5.5. It's 4.5 now.
Yes, I did. Yeah, some.
It's going to be a long year, fellas.
So let's talk a little bit more about the rest of the draft picks briefly here. And if you have 1 or 2 picks that you want to highlight or talk about, this would be a great time to talk about it. I guess some of you already addressed this, but with their 33rd, that second day, the 33rd and 36th pick, we had all day Friday to kind of look at that. And people were a lot of people were suggesting they were going to take a quarterback, maybe then a running back, and then anyway, what ended up happening was the Browns took the linebacker from UCLA, Carson Schwessinger. Yeah, and then with that extra 36 pick, they got Junkins from OSU, which I love. Carson, the kid out of UCLA, just a really good, solid linebacker. Right? Some people are criticizing it because he was a walk-on, but he had a hell of a season last year. And listening to our colleague Joel Cade recently with the what the Elf is at, I mean, he was very high on this kid. I know many of you here are as well. So those 2 picks, in my opinion, were, I mean, A plus picks. I know some people argued, well, why did they take a linebacker and all this at 33? But we need a linebacker. And he was the best one, or the best one of the top 2. So anybody want to react to those picks or any of that?
They better. Oh, go ahead, Steve.
Go ahead, Drew.
I was going to say they better hit, and you better see immediate. I mean, the defense better look phenomenal this season. And I talked about it on my show. If you look at the quarterbacks that are coming to town, let me make sure I'm looking at the right schedule. But you got Josh Allen, you got Jordan Love, you got Tua, you got Brock Purdy. Obviously, you got Lamar Jackson twice, Joe Burrow twice. You got Jared Goff coming, and you got Caleb Williams. So I think any collection of those quarterbacks are going to be top 10 quarterbacks. I think you can make that argument that they're going to face at least 6 top 10 quarterbacks. I better see elite defensive play against these quarterbacks when you go all in on a defensive tackle, which I would hope that his floor is like Albert Haynesworth with the Titans or something. If he's Aaron Donald, then great.
Yeah.
His linebacker, I never really heard of him. But you go when your offense is dead last and you go defensive tackle and linebacker in the first 2 picks, your defense better look like the 85 Bears. They better look like that. You just signed Myles Garrett. You still got
Mhm.
Denzel Ward coming. And I know they're a
Yeah.
little light in the safety on the back end, but that
Yeah.
shouldn't matter because you should be wreaking havoc on the front lines. So
Yeah.
between your Mike Halls, between your Mason Grahams, and whoever they put on the other side of Myles Garrett, they better be getting to the quarterback.
Now,
I
some
don't want to
people,
hear it.
now, Steve, I was going to let you go ahead and go. Before you discuss what you want to go on, one of the things I heard was, from some other podcasts and things, is that the Mason Graham pick, and I know I'm going back to the first pick that they made, but that really helped. That, in some people's mind, really will help Myles more with what he's able to do. I know some people really wanted Carter, but in these people's opinions, really working on that interior. I heard Nathan Zagura talking about that, really solidifying that interior. I know we've missed on some defensive backs, but I really like this Mason Graham kid. Steve, you can go ahead, and anybody else.
The Schlesinger kid, when Chip Kelly was a coach at UCLA, he didn't start, but he became a special teams demon in the 2 years. Then after Chip Kelly left, the new coaching staff said, well, if you want to start, you're going to have to earn it. And boy, did he earn it. I mean, kid's a tackling machine. I've heard nothing but good things. And, we don't know about JOK. I'm willing to bet he's not going to play this year. So, add him to the mix, put him in the middle. I like it. He's, like I said, he's a tackling machine. I like guys who tackle on defense. I really do. They're my favorite.
Maybe that will help our defense. I mean, I think our defense, Jarrell, has been pretty solid for the most part.
No doubt about it.
Yeah, over the
no doubt
last,
about it. They're holding teams to 13 points and 17 points. So defense really isn't the problem. It's that you can't score more than 17 points. That's the problem.
Well, now
so
we're going
that's
to make teams. Now, well, here's the way I look at it, though. Then too is that you got two more really stellar defensive players, just we were talking about, and now teams are only going to score 7 points. So now it's going to give the Browns offense a much healthier opportunity of winning games, right, guys? We just have to.
You mean like the Super Bowl where the Chiefs had scored 6 points through 3.5 quarters, or through the middle of the third quarter, and the Philly defense scored a touchdown.
I think we all agree. Yeah.
I think the offense, with the addition of two very dynamic, very good young running backs, and by the way, that's going to be your running back room for the next 3 or 4 years.
Oh, I'm so excited about that.
And they're going to be inexpensive. Then you add Harold Fannin to the list. I could actually see them doing the reverse Ozzie Newsome. Ozzie Newsome was a wide receiver at Alabama, and they turned him into a tight end. I could see them do the reverse with Fannin. I mean, they are going to play more 12. Let's stick to the fact. I mean, when you got Njoku and Fannin and you got these two running backs, I'm happy with that. And this Johnson signing, I know a lot of people complain about it, but it's low risk, high reward.
Yeah, he had a series of very good.
And Tillman, the 4 games before he got hurt, he had just hit his stride. I mean, he had something like 24 catches, 302 yards, 3 touchdowns, and he had something like 75 yards. He was averaging 75 yards after the catch. He was just starting to hit his stride with Jameis Winston, somebody who could throw the ball deep. I don't know, somebody like, I don't know, this Flacco kid. Anybody ever heard of him? I'm not too familiar. So
I want to talk about those guys in a little bit, but
let's see what happens. I'm not gonna fry these guys at May 1st. No, I'll wait to see what happens.
Ethan or Sam, do you have on those at least the two interior these picks at 30s? Any thoughts on Junkins or is it Schlesinger? Am I saying that right?
Yeah. Sam, go ahead. Sam, go ahead. I talk too much.
I mean, I think he's decent, but I mean, it's gonna be interesting because linebacker is such it's such an important position, but it's also a position that's you have to be good at to perform well because it's such a versatile position. Sometimes you're playing on the line, sometimes you're playing off ball, sometimes you're rushing the passer, sometimes you're rushing the running back. It's a very important position on the field, and if you aren't able to do that, all of those correctly, and you don't have to be great at all of them, but if you aren't able to do all of them amazingly, sometimes you'll have problems, and the offense will very quickly find that problem and exploit it. But I think he's a decent pick. I think there probably might have been better options there, but no, I'm not gonna complain right now.
Ethan, anything else you want to add to that?
Not much there. I mean, the second round picks. I mean, the second day overall, you kind of you go with this with Schlesinger.
Yeah,
that's a tongue tie.
It is.
Schlesinger. There at 33. I didn't know much about him, but certainly the JOK issues and injury is one that we know very little of. But it doesn't. He's going to be in all. I mean, as far as we know, the fact they haven't said squat about it makes you think he probably is not going to make it back.
Now, I heard today that he was working out.
But what is working out?
Yeah.
That's therein lies the question. And I really love the Judkins and Fannin picks, and then the head scratcher at the end of the third. But
I want to get to that here in a minute. So Harold Fannin, I know many of us here are pretty fans of this pick. He's a local kid from Cannon McKinley High School as well. Joel described his running today on his What the Elf show. It's funny. I didn't catch the whole show, but listen to Joel's comments about Harold Fannin. He says Harold Fannin reminds him of Fred Flintstone in the Flintstones and how he runs. It's almost like his feet don't leave the ground, but somehow he rumbles and he. I'm like, I haven't really watched a lot of tape on him. I just know he's a very good catcher, ball catcher, and I think, like Steve's suggesting, that the Browns will use him more. You know, we're talking about wide receivers. I think this kid will be on the field. He's not a big blocker right now. I think they'll use him in this passing game, especially now with Elijah Moore leaving. I don't know. So I love the pick. I mean, I think it's the family is a Browns family. They love the Cleveland Browns, and so I was real excited for Fannin. Anybody have other takes on Fannin that you wanted to share out before we move on to the quarterback discussion?
If they're going to go too tight end, I want to see. I'd like to see Fannin moved around a little bit, a la Aaron Hernandez. Mm-hmm. They should be lining him up all over the field because the Patriots they were killing with the two tight ends. But I don't know that Stefanski has that much imagination because when they were running jet sweeps,
he does. You don't think he does? No.
Elijah Moore's jet sweeps, he was getting negative yards.
Well, this is we're not doing the jet sweep. So, I see too many.
So, and speaking of which, I got one question I want to pose really to all of y'all. I had to pull it up. When they traded a second round for Elijah Moore, I have it here. Tank Dell was still on the board.
Wait, who?
Rasheed Rice.
Wait, hold on. Time out. You're saying we traded for Elijah Moore?
No. This is when they got Elijah Moore from the Jets. Remember?
Yeah.
Okay. Barry traded a second round pick. This is where I talk about their talent evaluation because they traded a second pick for Elijah Moore, who's no longer on the team. They just let him walk. So that was a second round pick down the drain. Okay. And you had a couple of elite, I don't want to call them elite, but serviceable receivers that were putting up numbers. That's where them getting an extra pick from the Jaguars, if they're not going to hit on these picks and they're not going to keep and develop these picks. Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it's a big question mark right now, Jarrell. I think we're all these picks and what they're going to do and with the talent and the quarterbacks and everything we're going to talk about here in a minute. I mean, the Browns and Stefanski and Barry, they have this opportunity now, and I think I know we've talked about who have they developed already. Here they are; they're getting another opportunity. So I'm willing to give them that chance. Obviously, if it doesn't work out, we're going to be talking about a lot of other things. But let's pause for a quick break here on the Fanatical Elfz show. We'll be right back. Thank you for returning to the Fanatical Elfz show, part of the Fanatical Elfz Network, part of Fans First Sports Network. And thank you for drinking some Hemisphere Coffee Roasters coffee, who sponsor the show. Great group up there in Mechanicsburg, Ohio. They shake the hand of the farmer. Just go buy their coffee. The link is on our X page. And if you go buy the coffee, you're supporting our programming. So thank you. All right, that's a good question, Jarrell. You left off with, talking about the Browns and what they're going to be able to do, and these draft picks, and these extras, exactly what it's going to pan out to be. I guess I want to jump into this. I know, Ethan, we're all talking about it this week. Is the Browns at the end of the third round decided to draft Dylan Gabriel. And this whole time, Shedeur Sanders, who I've been promoting for months, and people were projecting that he'd be a top, pick and top 10 pick, and he's falling. And so the Browns, and I just talked about this, and we can talk about it a little bit. There's different scenarios that happened, but at pick 92, the Seattle Seahawks, the Seahawks jumped ahead at 92 to take Milroe, which I still think, and I know I've heard different people say Dylan Gabriel was higher than Milroe, but I think that the Browns probably had Milroe as just as high. And I'm going to guess that they got jumped by Seattle, and so then they had the pick at 94, and they took Dylan Gabriel, which for many of us was a surprise. I was surprised. So there it was. Your assessments, your thoughts on that. Sam, I want to start with you. What do you think about Dylan Gabriel? I know he's out there, he played at Oklahoma. He jumped to Oregon. He's been in college for like 16 years.
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem with some college players is they jump to so many teams. Like they go to 3 or 4 teams in their college career, and that makes it tough to see how really good they are, because you need consistent play with the same team. Because if you keep bouncing around, because on an NFL team, you'll be with the same coach, you'll be in the same playbook, same players for most of your rookie career. But when you go to a different team, you'll be under a new playbook. Now, maybe that shows that they can adapt to a lot of things, but I want to see how they do over the course of multiple years, like 3 or 4 years, to see how they adapt to how they perform against teams more than once, how they perform under the same playbook, how they perform with other players. But college just isn't that. But for the Browns, I think picking up a quarterback isn't a bad idea. It doesn't matter who it is, where he came from, how old he is. I think getting another one to just throw on the practice squad, training camp, isn't a bad idea.
I'm sorry. I'm just ripping on this kid on his age and his size. I know it was funny. I'm sorry, Ethan. Heather was talking about combining Dylan Gabriel with his size with Kenny Pickett's hands. I thought that was funny.
Oh, yeah.
In your show the other night when you guys were talking about that.
Yeah. I mean, at least he's not as old as Tyler Shuck. But I guess, Sam, to your point about jumping around from school to school, the latest example of someone that went early in the draft that jumped to multiple schools, Bo Nix. And I guess he's
all right. I'll give you another one.
Jalen Hurts.
Cam Ward, Miami was his third team. Ward.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I mean, so I think that's more of something we're going to see more often now because of the change in the college football rules and the transfer portal that weren't in play and weren't a factor many years ago, because the only way you could get out of being at the college that you started at was a coaching change and some kind of a major exemption, and you might lose a year of eligibility as well. So that's kind of going to be a new trend that I think we'll see. But
so Steve and then Jarrell. Steve, what are your, like, Dylan Gabriel, your initial thoughts when he was drafted and now? I want to get into the Shedeur a little bit here in a minute, but
I had heard that they were interested in him, and he's very adaptable. Everybody talks about his height. He's the same height as Russell Wilson. He's an inch shorter than Baker Mayfield. He's an inch taller than Kyler Murray. So in the last couple of times Kyler Murray played the Browns, he won. So, he's just a winner. He finds a way to win. He gets rid of the ball quickly. He's got great footwork. And like Sam was saying, they like him because he can adapt to different offenses.
Okay.
That's a major plus. That's like an offensive lineman who can play more than one position. You want to get those kind of guys. And that's what it is. I mean,
when did
I find it interesting that after he was picked, The next quarterback to come off the board was Shedeur Sanders.
Yes, it was a while.
Yeah, and they did that because they knew Philly was going to take him, so that's why they jumped ahead,
right?
and took Sanders.
Right, you and I were speculating, or we talked about that the other day when we were on live. Yeah. So Dylan Gabriel, I guess for me too, it's like
he wins
when he does win, but I don't know if was it the Ohio State game that he went up against them with last year, right? And
which one, the first one or the second one?
Probably the second one. I know the first one they won, and they only won because Will Howard kind of screwed that up at the end of the. But anyway,
that wasn't the only reason.
Well, I guess I know you're right. You're right.
He also got screwed because they called that play at the beginning of the game like an interception, or ref screwed the pooch early on in the game.
And I saw him playing in Oklahoma, and I know he's improved and he's gotten older, but he's 24. He's going to be 25. I guess when the time that I saw him play at Oklahoma, and I watched several games because I followed the Big 12 more because of K-State and KU and stuff. I mean, I was not like, I know that he's had a lot of talk about him. And so when he got to Oklahoma, I remember at the time when he was in college, and there was a lot of national attention given to this kid. I'm anxious to see what he's like, because he's, all these guys that are getting drafted, they all have to be cocky and a little bit, know that they're really good players. And I'm anxious to see how it all pans out, because then we're going to talk about Shedeur here in a minute. And, it's a different type of, everybody's kind of got a different type of cockiness. And I'm anxious to see how this all plays out in this.
Me too.
And yeah. Jarrell, thoughts on Dylan Gabriel when the Browns took him?
I thought that was a dumb pick.
I knew you were going to say.
I mean, everybody, the research I did, everybody said that he was a 5th or 6th round grade. So
yes.
I don't understand how you take a quarterback that's graded in the 5th or the 6th round. You take him in the 3rd round, but then the quarterback that's graded in the 1st or the 2nd round, you take him in the 5th round. I don't understand that logic. Now, I know a lot of teams passed on Shedeur Sanders. So again, maybe everybody felt that way. Mm-hmm. But this just plays into my whole notion of they don't know what they're doing, because I challenged the panel. What 3rd round draft pick did Andrew Berry, what has he hit on in 5 years in the 3rd round? What does he hit on in the 4th round? That was a lot of his late round picks.
Wasn't Jerome Ford a 3rd or 4th?
Is he a 5th rounder? And DeJuan Jones is a 4th rounder.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Oh no, his Andrew Berry stinks. Jarrell, no one's going to deny it. Andrew Berry's draft record sucks. This whole thing has sucked. But how many?
I don't know about that. I don't want to.
John,
he sucks. He sucks.
It sucks. Okay, they have done nothing right. Except they've gotten lucky. What they got? Martin Emerson in the 3rd.
Well,
round.
no, I don't. Martin Emerson. Yeah, that was actually one of the guys.
We have generations of terrible GMs since 2000. Ray Farmer. What the hell? I can't even think of the other jackalopes that have done picks that are just awful. And you're right, Jarrell. So Andrew Berry, based upon everything he's
I don't agree with that. I think Steve disagrees with that too.
What part don't you agree with? Let's unpack that. What part don't you agree with?
I think your jump. I think if you want to say that about the Browns, I think you could look at any other team in the NFL. And you were talking 3rd, 4th, 5th round picks and who have they hit on. I would gather, and I haven't done the research, but I've done a little bit when I've looked at quarterbacks. And there aren't a lot of other teams that are hitting on every 3rd, 4th, or 5th pick. If you want to get into the whole thing about, well, this is why the Ravens are great or whatever. Look, I'm not. They are good. These other teams, some of them are, but I think for the most part, a lot of these other teams are not hitting all the time. And I'm not a fan of Andrew Berry. I've said enough times in Savancy, I think that they're on thin ice, but I think that these guys are better than you mentioned. Ray Farmer and some of these other, they were
trust in Phil.
Well, I like Phil a little bit more. I don't know. I just want to give, that's all I'm saying, Jarrell. I know that it doesn't look great. And I know what Ethan's saying too. I just don't know. Steve, do you have anything else you wanted to add there?
Steve, and I'm gonna pass it to you. Steve,
Yeah.
I'm gonna pass it to you because I want to get your take on this. What I'm basing it off of is what they came in with and what has happened since they got control of the reins. Because at the end of the day, they are the ones that have to fall on the sword for the decisions that they made. They made the decision to get rid of a number one pick that was here that they didn't pick. They made that decision.
Yeah.
Now they parted ways with 3 first-round draft picks, whatever. That was they went all in on that. They pushed their chips to the table. I just brought up the Elijah Moore piece. That's a second-round pick. We know Andrew Berry. He loves his draft picks. He doesn't part. It takes an act of Congress for him to part ways with his draft picks. I just brought up Elijah Moore. That was a second-round pick he tried to flip, and he's not on the team anymore. So that's a waste of a second-round pick. So that's what I'm basing it off of, all of the talent that has come in and that has gone out, and now we're expecting them to fill out the roster. Now that they got the first-round picks back, we're expecting them to fill out the roster. This isn't a rebuild, Steve. And again, I want Steve to chime in. It doesn't look like a rebuild to me, but Steve, to everything I said, and I know I bounced around a little bit, I think you disagree. You disagree because why?
Jack Duffin, our favorite Brit, who knows a ton about the salary cap and is very, very analytical in his thinking, did an article last year. He took 13 teams who all had the same GM during the same period as Andrew Berry.
Yeah.
He gave every draft pick a rating. And of those 13 teams, the Browns finished 5th. So as John was saying, no GM is perfect. If you can get any type of contribution from your late day 2 to all your day 3 draft picks, you're a pretty good GM. Has he been perfect? No GM is perfect. None. Zero. As for getting rid of a former number 1 draft pick, Baker Mayfield ran himself out of town. And it took his 4th team for him to finally realize that he would have to actually study to be a starting quarterback. And he got that opportunity. A lot of quarterbacks don't get that opportunity, don't get 4 teams to bring him in. So, and as for the Watson deal, they all know it was a bad move. I know why they did it. They were desperate for a franchise quarterback. All the fans were screaming for a franchise quarterback, and that's why they did it. Now they have a plan to get rid of him. He will never see the field again, and it will not hurt them financially, John.
No. I wanted to follow up on your point because I wanted you to share this out because Steve, and we all talk about Watson. I have a lot of people that, like my colleagues I work with, who are saying, well, you still have Watson in the building. And I said, he's gone. He's never going to touch the field again. And these people that don't follow the Browns, they don't get it. They're like, you still have to deal with it. I said, no, we don't. It's
Achilles there.
It's taken care of. So I was just trying to
put him on the IR for this year, and they're going to put him on the IR for next year. He is never going to see the field again. So they fixed it. They have a plan. That's why I feel Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski are safe not only this year, but next year. Because Jimmy Haslam, they have a plan. He's going to bail out the Haslams, and these guys are going to bail out the Haslams.
Can I respond to that?
It would take Myles Garrett going to the owner and saying, get rid of him, for Jimmy Haslam to get rid of him. Okay.
So, and let's just say I'm going to take everything you say, and let's just say I agree with that, right? They got their franchise quarterback, and I talked about this on my show. They said that they changed the offense for Deshaun Watson. That's what they said. Would you agree with that, Steve? So they tailored the offense to him. Now, when Lamar Jackson was drafted, they tailored the offense to him, and I think they went through an offensive coordinator. I don't hear about the bugs and how it didn't work. They tailored an offense to Jalen Hurts, and it worked. So my question that I posed on the show is that, well, we hear that Stefanski changed everything, and he catered it to Deshaun Watson. They brought in DTR, and he was supposed to run it. This quote unquote offense that they revamped, the person that looked the best in it was Jameis Winston, and Ken Dorsey was calling the plays. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that We've watched them go through all of these different moving parts and try to make all of this stuff work. All for them to say, well, Deshaun Watson didn't work. We changed everything for him. Let's scrap that. Let's go back to the Kevin Stefanski way. But how long is it going to take for them to get a top 10 O-line like they had, to get a top 5 running back like they had? There's no guarantee that they're going to get that. So that's the only point that I'm making, is that there's been so much turnover and so much change that if they're trying to get back to what they were in 2020, I don't think that that's smart. I think you have to tailor the offense to what you have right now. So if it's supposed to be Njoku and Fannin and these new 2 backs, you shouldn't be trying to run what you ran in 2020, because I don't think it's going to work, because there's tape on that.
I never said they were going to run that. They are adjusting their offense to the players they have.
So they're not going to roll out the Stefanski from 2021. That's what you're saying. We're not going to see the same things we've already seen.
No, I don't think they are. I think they're going to concentrate more on the run. They just got a brand new spanking young running back room. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can say, well, they're just 20 college years old, players, right? Isn't John? Yeah, Sampson set a school
and then Dylan
record
Sampson. We haven't even talked about him.
Touchdowns with 22 touchdowns at Tennessee. Now, we're not talking about Tennessee Tech, and we're not talking about, East Tennessee State. Mm-hmm. Yeah, East Tennessee State. Well, I like Tennessee State. But we're talking about the University of Tennessee, who plays SEC defenses. Guy was co-offensive player of the year, and he set a team record for 22 rushing touchdowns. Yes. He finds the end zone. Mm-hmm. So, you look at these guys, they both had good 40 times, 4.48 for Judkins, 4.42 for Sampson. By the way, for reference, Chubb had a 4.52. Mm-hmm. So, this offense is going to not look like last year. I can understand why they changed it, because you can just go back and watch that Baltimore game from 2023, where they spent the entire game down 14 points. And then second half, Watson took them on 3 long scoring drives. Mm-hmm. And I'm talking long scoring drives. I'm talking 12, 13-minute, 75, 80-yard drives, 2 touchdowns and a field goal to win that game. That's what they based it on. They based it on what he did before he got hurt. I can understand that. Mm-hmm. Now, did they execute it well? Hell no, they didn't. They started with 2 tackles who should have been on the practice squad. Mm-hmm. You don't start a season with tackle number 5 and 6 starting game 1 against the Dallas Cowboys. That's a disaster waiting to happen. So, I love statistics, but I believe in situations and circumstances. That's what I believe in.
All right, let me switch. I'm going to switch gears a little bit. I'm going to shift to another hot topic, not a hot topic, but we've been talking about the run game, and I kind of want to finish our show here in a little bit here. Nick Chubb, free agent, has been the backbone, the heartbeat of the Browns in the running game we've been talking about. Is he going? We've heard rumors he could be going to Chicago. Is he getting feelers? Sam, how do you feel about Nick Chubb? And do you think that he comes back, or do you think it's like you've talked about it just being a business decision? But I feel like, for me, I'm like, every day that this goes on, I think it favors the Browns, because I haven't heard anything yet. It was a hot button earlier a couple days ago, but what do you think, Sam?
Yeah. It's not really with holding out, right? Now Nick Chubb probably is not holding out. I don't count this as holding out, but with holding out, it's very hard to win a holdout, because yes, if you're a crucial player like a quarterback or a wide receiver, it is important. You can win the holdout because because the team needs you to win games. But with people now Nick Chubb isn't a bad player. I really do hope he comes back, right? Don't get me wrong. I really hope Nick Chubb comes back. I love him. I think he's a great player. But I think from a perspective of just performance, if there's worries he might not, do we even know if he's going to be able to start the season healthy or okay?
He looks pretty healthy in the videos.
Sam, his foot is completely healed. The issue is, he's not holding out. He's a free agent.
I know. That was the wrong word. That was
Yeah, because he's either
It was
gonna,
not a holdout. I
this
just
is a
need a way
matter
to.
of whether the Browns want to bring him back or not. They've got two new, fresh, brand spanking new running backs, and then we got jackass Pierre Strong and jackass Jerome Ford. Which one of those would you guys cut? And would you bring Chubb back for more? That's the end of the day. What do they want to do? He is the heart and soul of this team, and we love him. And they're gonna, whatever happens, happens. If he can get a better deal in Chicago, go for it. But in Chicago, I still think he could be slide right into the second back there. DeAndre Swift and Roshan Johnson, Kyle Monangai, and
Roshan Johnson is the kid from Texas, right? Wasn't he the one that we kind of liked a year or two ago?
Yeah. He was in 2023. He's had a total of 55 carries in 2024. He had 55 carries for 150 yards, averaging 2.7 yards a carry. Did have 6 touchdowns. Round 4 pick. Would Nick Chubb go right ahead of him? Yes. He may not have the same burst, but the foot was the injury that took him out. It's a bone. He looked perfectly fine jumping over God knows what and lifting 5 million pounds.
That was true. Steve, do you want to see Nick? Obviously, you probably want to see him back. Do you think he comes back?
Sure, I want to see him back. Gee, I wonder who told Ken Carman that an NFC team, everybody's assuming it's Chicago because nobody said it's Chicago, but I guarantee you that was an agent-driven conversation, Nick Chubb's agent. And then we get 2 straight days of Nick Chubb working out. Wow, gee, wonder why. Look, he's an injury away from never playing again. Let's face facts. He doesn't have the same burst. He doesn't have the same speed. He has the same decision making. You could see it. He could to the cut, but he'd get tackled almost right away. I think his longest run last year was 12 yards, maybe 12, 13 yards.
Let me ask Steve.
It's that one thing. I mean, yes, I'd love to have him back, but if he came back, he'd be no better than running back number 3 or 4. So he's got to realize that the longer he waits, and if he's waiting for an injury in training camp, we're talking July, August.
Right, like Kareem Hunt a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and
do we know? Do we even know if the Browns have made a formal?
Yes.
Okay.
They talk to his agents once a week.
Okay.
Yeah, Steve.
So they do show our interest in him.
I was going to ask you something, though. Do you think that any of his running struggles last year were also part of the whole issue with the type of offense they were running? And,
I think it is more of an issue with the offensive line. He made that offensive line look like a top 10.
Well, we've talked about that before for sure.
Right. So if they're going back to a more traditional under center quarterback and changing the blocking scheme, kind of taking
they're going to that zone block, which they're very successful at.
Right. So what I'm saying is, could he not show a little bit better than even last year under the circumstances? Potentially.
29-year-old running back.
Okay.
Had 3 tears in his knee plus a broken foot. Sam's right. It's got to be a business decision.
Yeah.
I mean, if he comes in and gets hurt his very first game he plays, and it's another tear, man, the peanut gallery is going to be screaming at Andrew Berry for signing a washed-up running back, because that's how the fans.
I don't think they would do that because it's Nick Chubb. It's Nick Chubb.
There would be a
there'd be a small come on, the fan base is pretty loyal to Nick Chubb. I mean, he's been the big.
They're loyal to Nick Chubb, John, but they're not loyal to Andrew Berry.
Well, okay, fine, but I'm just saying most folks, at least social media wise, are begging to get Nick Chubb back, as far as that's what we see.
Well, then the team should definitely listen to the Browns.
I know, Steve.
Wow, they are so astute.
Jarrell, any thoughts on Nick and coming back?
I think it's a shame. I think it's a shame what they're doing because, I look at it. I think he's a locker room guy, and I think if you let him walk, I don't know who your locker room veteran leadership is going to be, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Maybe it'll be Njoku. I don't know, but I brought this up on my show also. if you think about the last 5 seasons, it seems like every season there is something that happens in that locker room. First, you had the Baker OBJ piece. Then you had the Jadeveon Clowney, Myles Garrett piece. So I think if you let Chubb walk, and they don't really know who the quarterback is going to be, I think you could have a situation where if the coaching staff picks a quarterback, but the locker room wants another quarterback, who's going to quell that? Because I don't think Stefanski has shown the resolve and the leadership to be able to keep everything in check. I think Nick Chubb has that type of respect. I think if he talks, people listen. So I think it's past what he can bring you from a production standpoint. At some point, you have to establish culture. I think that's what some of the other organizations in the AFC North do, and I think they understand that certain players aren't necessarily going to be your show horses or your workhorses anymore. You sometimes you just need people to keep people in check and keep the locker room in order.
Okay.
So that's why I think they should keep him. Would I agree with Steve that he probably wouldn't be nothing higher than an RB3? Yeah, but I still think Chubb brings enough value at an RB3, especially with these younger guys, to be able to,
That's where I see the real benefit if they brought him back as a mentor. If
you're going to sign him as a mentor, and then he's going to get paid as a mentor.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, if he's looking for more money than what they're offering, then they've got guys. They got Batonio, Teller. They've got Njoku. They've got Joe Flacco. Those are locker room guys.
Yeah.
The locker room was ecstatic that they re-signed Joe Flacco.
So
the locker room is fine. But you ain't getting the old Nick Chubb back. You might as well scrub that from your memory. Enjoy it while it happened. That guy no longer exists.
Last two things I want to bring up to the group here, and I want a few comments before we leave tonight because we're coming on an hour. I know everybody loves it.
Yeah, I know.
Two things. Shedeur Sanders was the last pick. Shedeur Sanders is getting a lot of attention this week.
Good.
We now have 4 quarterbacks: Vine, Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Dylan Gabriel, and Shedeur Sanders. I love the Shedeur Sanders pick. I know that he's different in some ways and that he's been criticized by some for what happened and he dropped. And we can talk about that other time, but it's a full house of quarterbacks that are going to compete. Not all of them are going to make the squad. Somebody's not, or they're going to do something with somebody. I just want your thoughts on Shedeur briefly, and then just this quarterback competition and what your thoughts are on that. Ethan, why don't we start with you?
Sure. Well, my thought process is this. I think that they brought in Kenny Pickett at a time because we had nobody else. Then we add Joe Flacco, and then we end up with the 2 rookies. So that changed the dynamics, right? You cannot just send a guy to the practice squad. So we know Andrew Berry loves him some rookie, loves his draft picks. I think you mentioned Jarrell. I think you were saying it maybe in the perspective of he doesn't like to get rid of them, but as the players themselves, he doesn't want to give up on them, right? So let's say he's not going to give up on Gabriel or Sanders, because if he cuts them, somebody else can pick them up off waivers. And then if they clear waivers, they have to agree to come back to the Browns. Otherwise, they can go anywhere they want, right?
Can rookies do that?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it starts with the practice squad. Everybody goes on waivers. Okay. And they're not going to, neither one of them are going to go to the practice squad. They'll get picked up by somebody.
Exactly.
So you've got 4 guys, which is interesting because when the season ended, they had an injured Watson, Bradley Zappi, and DTR. I think the quarterback room has improved a little bit.
Oh, it's definitely improved, but I can see it coming down to a matter of
it's a question of, do you keep 2 veterans and a rookie, or do you keep a veteran and 2 rookies as your quarterback room? That's the only question you should ask, and that'll play itself out.
Yep, that's where I think it's going, and I could see them looking potentially Pickett as a trade piece. He's got more upside.
Well, doesn't Mary Kay come on today and say something about the Browns?
Yeah, she said that she thinks that they favor Pickett, and maybe they do they're hoping he could be. Okay, so let's talk about the number of years he might have left in his career versus the number of years Flacco might have. So in theory, you're looking for him. If he can play well, that's great. But what happens? They were talking about this on 850 this morning. What happens if he has a great season and then outprices himself, like a la Sam Darnold? We need to see what these rookies have to get in position and step up and get themselves in position, no matter who it is. I think it's going to be one of the veterans, two of the rookies. That's just my thought there. Yeah. And one of the rookies needs to really show the potential.
Now, if they carry three quarterbacks, will one of them? Okay, but one of them will always be not suited up on Sundays. Is that correct?
He'll be the emergency quarterback.
So they will suit up. So all three quarterbacks would be on the sideline.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Steve, you want to finish your thoughts there on the situation there? Do you also believe that? Do you think they're going
to? I hope they go two veterans and a rookie. I'd feel a lot better than one veteran and two rookies, knowing how many starting quarterbacks in this league get hurt, not just the Browns. So that would make me feel better. But like I said, I haven't seen these two rookies play in a pro offense. They like them both because they both adapt to different offenses. The Shador thing at round 5 was a great value pick. And let me just put one thing out there. Jimmy Haslam did not make that pick. I hate to tell you this.
Yeah, you get a lot. You hear people saying that. Yeah.
Well, I've read 3 different sports reporters that said that's a bunch of crap.
Right.
And I've been told that that's a bunch of crap. Andrew at the beginning of the 5th round, Andrew Berry turned to Jimmy Haslam and said, Shador Sanders is still available. I'm gonna get him. And that's all that was said between Andrew Berry and Jimmy Haslam. So we can forget about that garbage that all these people are putting. Oh, that's a Haslam pick. That's got to be a Haslam pick. That's a bunch of bull beep. So stop.
Yeah. No.
But I think it's great that this kid is getting the pub. I love it. I don't know if they're going to be on Hard Knocks. They've been on in the last 8 years, and there's an 8-year rule in Hard Knocks, but they may change it. If they do, they should pay the Browns for him to be on it.
Yeah.
Why not? Let's make a little money. Give us some extra salary cap.
Steve Hemrick are watching our show. Remember, they did seek out a trade for Pickett and traded picks for him. They obviously see something.
He's essentially a 5th round pick, if you really want to look at it.
Yep.
So, I mean, he's a Super Bowl champion, so
right, Sam.
15-10, won a playoff game.
He's not that far
in the Super Bowl, so
yeah,
he had a perfect passer rating because he didn't throw the ball.
But he lost yardage on that one play.
Yeah, but it's a scramble. I'm not going to judge him too much.
I mean, it would be kind of Joe Flacco, the Flacco mania. I don't know if people that he's 40 years old now. He's 2 years. I mean, and you watch him in Indy, and it wasn't the same Flacco as he had. But I think part of it was just the mystique, the magic from the lakefront 2 years ago.
You can't repeat that. I hate to
and
Kansas, but that's not going to ever happen again.
Exactly. No, I agree.
Situation and circumstances. He paid a bunch of teams who didn't want to be on the field.
Now, I read somewhere, and I think this is, I don't know, Jarrell, if you've done any research on this, or Sam, but Joe Flacco, and Steve, you probably know this already, but he's the only one in the group of the 2 guys that after June 1st, he could be released and not be a penalty to the Brownies as far as financially. So some people have speculated that let's see what happens over the course of the next month or so, and that he could be the one that goes instead of Kenny Pickett, like some people have said already. Jarrell or Sam, where do you think everything falls again with this quarterback competition before we leave tonight? Either one of you?
I mean,
Sam, you can take it first.
I think quarterback competition, just throw everyone into the training camp and let them go wild. I mean, at some point, At some point, you have
anything's better than Deshaun, right? You know. Okay.
Yeah, at some point, you just have to say, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how this is going to go. Everyone, you have a shot. If you perform well, you get the starting job. And I promise you that, like, let's just say we have 6 quarterbacks, 3 of them rookies. I promise you, if you tell 3 quarterbacks, rookies, if you perform well in training camp, you win the starting job, you will see them perform to the highest they can do, because that starting job is a huge exposure bonus and just a big thing for a starting quarterback. Because even if you, because most rookies don't go to teams that they have quarterback battles, but they usually have someone they're thinking about. With this team, it's just who cares. So I think it's a good idea to just tell them, go for it, because I think the rookies will perform better because they know that they have a good shot at a starting job if they can just perform well, and that starting job will be huge for their future, their contracts, things like that. It does help.
Yeah. Jarrell, any thoughts on that?
This is going to sound very anti-Stefanski, and y'all know how I feel about Stefanski, his coaching ability. I don't trust Stefanski to be able to evaluate 4 quarterbacks and say which one gives them the best chance to win. When the 49ers drafted Trey Lance and Brock Purdy, Kyle Shanahan, I can't remember who they said he said it to, but he was like, the guy we drafted last is the best quarterback we have. That takes some know-how, and it takes some balls to be able to say that, that the guy you drafted in the first round isn't better than this guy that was the last pick of the draft. Okay. I'm just going off what I've seen from Stefanski in 4 seasons, by whatever the number is. I don't trust him to be able to evaluate Flacco, evaluate Gabriel, evaluate Pickett, and evaluate Sanders and say, you're the best. You give us the best chance to win.
Jarrell, just based on, I mean, if I'm just looking at it just from experience, obviously, Joe Flacco coming back in here, knowing the offense, knowing how it was, and I know the offense is being tweaked and everything like that, but I'd feel very comfortable putting Joe Flacco in there at least in week 1. If that's, I know it's going to be a competition over the summer, but unless one of these 2 rookies is lights out, I'm going.
And what if they light it up? What if the rookies light it up? And
well, they're going to light it, but we already know as Browns fans going into a preseason, we're going to see, like, come on. I mean, we thought DTR was the next, second coming of, and all of this. I mean, they're going to light it up, and we're all going to be talking about it. And I'm going to get overhyped about Shedeur, and I'm going to be like, yeah, let's go, let's get him in there. Like, but that's what I'm saying. That's Stefanski's job to know that that's preseason. That's his job to know. Jarrell, I'm not citing. Didn't necessarily disagree with everything you're saying about this. I do lean a little bit sometimes on what exactly does Stefanski. I know Steve doesn't agree with me right now, but I don't.
Oh no, he makes bad coaching. He makes bad coaching mistakes. Mike Tomlin makes bad coaching mistakes.
That's the other thing.
Mike Tomlin can't win a game in prime time on Thursdays. So, no coach is perfect. Kyle Shanahan made huge mistakes everywhere he's gone. So, nobody's perfect. Andy Reid, he was supposed to be the perfect head coach. Yeah, what was that in the Super Bowl?
I want to jump through our final.
Sirianni with the Eagles was supposed to be fired after a month.
That's true. Well, let me hear some final thoughts here before we leave. I do want my final thought as we go around the room before we say goodnight to everybody. Good night, John Boy. Good night, everybody that's on the Waltons. Shedeur Sanders. I've been plugging for him, positive for him. I just want to give a shout out to him. And I know his entourage used videotaping everything on his, but he did go to John Marshall High School yesterday, showed up there, and I just props to him. I work in schools. I talked about it on my Johnny Cleveland show last night. And I just, I know Shedeur, some people are criticizing him for like his sort of relaxed attitude. He's wearing t-shirt and shorts and, all these things, but he went there. He was immersed in communicating with these kids. I watched a lot of videos. There were several other videos that were been released, and he was right there with these kids. And he's a young kid himself. And I admired that for what it is. And I know some people will say, well, it was all, it's all in front of the cameras and all this stuff. And I think Aaron Goldhammer had an idiot response on 850 this morning. I just thought, Aaron, just shut up. Like, you don't know jack squat. So I just want to give a shout out to Shedeur. I think it's a good step in the right direction. I'm looking forward to seeing what else happens for him. So final takes from anybody else tonight. Sam, you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, I think Shedeur Sanders has potential. I don't know if he will realize his potential, not realize it as in he won't be good in the NFL. I just don't think the Browns are the best team to realize a true quarterback's potential. I think they can become that team. Don't get me wrong.
I don't think Jarrell's going to argue with you on that.
I think we have some pieces, but I think that's the problem with quarterbacks. I wouldn't say problem with rookie quarterbacks is rookie quarterbacks go to the worst teams. You very rarely, in the case of like the 49ers or in these teams, you very rarely see quarterbacks show up on teams that are already established, already contending for divisional rounds and things like that. You very rarely see that. And so, unfortunately, you see that with Caleb Williams. So I think he has potential. You see that with Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence sometimes. I think some of these quarterbacks are good quarterbacks. The problem is they just aren't put into a good situation. I mean, we saw what happened with Trevor Lawrence and his head coach and everything. Unfortunately, that's just what happens sometimes with rookie quarterbacks. And so I think Shedeur can do well in the NFL. I don't know if he's a championship player in terms of like being able to bring you to a title or not, but I think he isn't bad. I think he's a decent pick where we got him, and I won't complain about him on the team.
I'm just gonna let Ethan go next. I know you're a big Guardians fan, and Steve, you are too. I know, but it was funny tonight. You probably caught this at the end of the Tribe game. They won. Yep. Who was putting up their wrist?
Jose.
I mean, that was just,
hey,
he is an instant
first player in team history to get 250 home runs, 250 steals.
What a great player.
He is. Should have won him at least 3 MVPs by now.
Sam, thank you for your time tonight. Ethan, thoughts tonight on anything?
Yeah, I think that, as you mentioned, the Goldhammer take this morning was terrible, but that's what he gets from a national perspective. He's going to make those. He does that to inflame people. And now everybody is tweeting at him and talking, and he's getting listeners. He is engaging that he's doing exactly what he wanted to do.
Right.
It was done with a purpose. Look, I don't think the guy's doing anything wrong. I'm loving what he's doing so far. I'm glad he's up here and engaged. I've seen videos of Quinshon Judkins doing some workouts. Let's get these guys in the building. As long as they're not causing trouble, no drama, let's go. Let's win some games. Let's show that you can be who we thought you were going to be.
Jarrell?
I think Sanders is bringing some juice, and it kind of reminds me of Odell when he was with the Giants, when he was in his prime. It was like he had a certain cachet. He had a certain, he was in all the commercials and stuff. And I personally don't think that that's a bad thing. I think, however you can get players to buy in and want to play hard, whether it's a coach that can do that, whether I think players did that for Tom Brady, I think players did that for certain quarterbacks. I think there's a certain tangible that's not physical that you have to have. There's a certain aura that you have to have. Now, obviously, he has to get the starting job, and obviously he has to produce and win games, or at least put them in position to win games. But I'm of the mindset, what Flacco's ceiling is, what Pickett's ceiling is. You got to see what these other two guys can do. And I think that's where Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski have kind of backed themselves up into a corner, because at some point, if Flacco is stumbling out the gates or Pickett stumbling out the gates, they're not going to get to say we like our quarterback room, or they don't have the benefit of that doubt anymore. People are going to be clamoring for one or the other. So it's going to be I want to see him on Hard Knocks. I want to see him on in-season Hard Knocks.
Absolutely. Let's go.
That's going to be tremendous. So, but yeah, I like Sanders. I like the juice that he's bringing, and
Well, I
Obviously,
know,
the
you know,
city
John
is.
Marshall High School right there. I just thought, you know, I've worked in a lot of different schools, and I was thinking about, you know, if he was down here in Columbus and came to our schools or the places I've been, I mean, what a cool thing. I mean, those kids are real. He's talking to them in real ways. You know, the perspective, and he mentioned some things about, you know, how you look at things, and you got to be able to put a positive on it. I just thought that's a good, simple message that kids hear. And, you know, I know it's a social age, but I just thought it was a really good move. So, Jarrell, thank you. Ethan, thank you. The elder statesman, Steve Gill, with your final thoughts here on the Fanatical Elfz
Well, I'll
Network.
just put it to you simply. Right after the draft, the number 1 jersey was Cam Ward, followed by Travis Hunter, followed by Shedeur Sanders. This morning, the number 1 jersey sale, Shedeur Sanders. And that's great. That's great for the NFL. NFL loves that. They love those jerseys flying up the shelves because that means more money for them.
Do we know what number he's going to wear? Do we know?
No, we don't know what number. It's probably is the Sanders, you know, we have no idea. But
what numbers are available?
I can't wait for the kids to get in a week from tomorrow on the 9th. And I love the only time social media has a redeeming value is when you get to watch the players walk into the building at Berea. That's about it.
Yes.
So I'm looking forward to it.
Excellent. Guys, thank you so much for being here, being part of this show. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. Listen to us, download us on Apple, Spotify, anywhere you listen to your podcasting. We are there. We've got shows coming up later this week. I know Jarrell just produced a show, Dog Food Radio, that'll be coming out. Rod Bloom just has his show. He was on his video earlier. He's got his audio coming out. Ethan does Going Nuclear and the best doggone podcast in the land with Heather. The Browns Blitz tomorrow night with Lou Marconi and Sherry. Tune into that. Dog South. Okay, Steve, what is it?
Cleveland Browns Dog Pound South podcast.
I'm on Sunday, so tune in for that. And Sam with Browns Breakdowns. Sam, you got a show coming up soon?
Should be, yeah, Saturday.
Awesome. Everybody have a good night. Go Browns.
Go Browns.
Go Browns.
Go Browns.
Go Browns.